Welcome to Aviation Careers Podcast. My name is Carl Valeri, and I'll be your host today. You know, if you're transitioning from active duty to civilian career, but you don't know where to turn, well, there's a program with people who can help you, named the DoD SkillBridge program. The program is designed to support transitioning service members to career job training opportunities. And today I have with me somebody who knows a lot about the program, and that's David Schantz. And he's here to help us understand the whole program and help you out. So if you are one of those people, and I know we have a lot of listeners, especially out there on the boats and all, and on the ships, and are thinking about transitioning out into an aviation specific career. But if you do also have other friends that are in other careers, Dave knows a lot about that too. Before we get started, though, many of you I know are listening and want to know more about the scholarships guide and how you can get a free one. It's really easy. Go to aviationcareerspodcast.com/scholarships and type in pay it forward. And if you're somebody who wants to pay it forward, that's easy too. You'll just a video right there that tells you how you can pay it forward. And don't forget to hit the like button, because that actually, all that money we make off of the advertising goes towards this pay it forward program. We've given away hundreds of scholarships guides. And also, and Sun and Fun. I forgot to mention Sun and Fun. The whole crew from Aviation Careers Podcast is going to be at Sun and Fun, booth A41. We'd love to meet you. And don't forget to check out the website. And you can see where you can meet us at all the different air shows. Well, let's get started. We are here again with Dave Schantz. And Dave, welcome to the show. This is really exciting. I'm so excited to learn more about the SkillBridge program.
Thank you, Carl. Thanks for having me, and excited to dive into it.
Cool. And also joining us is going to be Matt Len, our producer and program coordinator. He's also going to be joining us at the air show. Hey, Matt, good to see you today.
How are you guys? Just got back from flying, so
yeah.
I
was watching, actually, just as an aside, I was watching Matt's landings on FlightAware, and you had this really big pattern as if you were an Airbus. What's that all about?
It was Airbus hour at Punta Gorda, and we had about 3 or 4 Navy T-45s in and out of the pattern. So it was, I think I almost made it to Sarasota in that pattern.
Well, speaking of Navy, if you're in the Navy or any of the armed forces, you'll want to look at this DoD SkillBridge program. And but first of all, let's talk a little bit about that. So, Dave, what is this Department of Defense SkillBridge program?
So the SkillBridge program allows transitioning service members the ability to participate in an unpaid internship or apprenticeship with approved organizations during the last 6 months of their service time, for from 1 to 6 months long, with the expectation that they're going to be hired on by the end. So there are no guarantees within the program. No company would ever participate if they had to guarantee employment up front. But this is a really great program to allow service members to start civilianizing themselves, start speaking the language of whatever industry they're looking to go into, and really start to network and sink their feet into their next civilian career. It's the best transition program that I can think of, and it really allows a service member to take their uniform off and submerge themselves in what life 2.0 may look like for them before they actually finish separating or retiring.
I love that term you just used, civilianize yourself. I probably haven't heard that before, to be honest with you. So that's a really cool one. And the reason I love that so much is because I work a lot with people that are transitioning into the civilian life from the military. And there's all these terms that both the military use and that we use in civilian life that can be confusing, can't they?
Absolutely. I thought of civilianize several years ago. I don't know if
That's
I heard
cool.
it. If I stole it from somebody, I apologize. I give you credit for it. But really, I just don't think that there's another industry that takes a transition. You could take a restaurant manager today and turn them into a lawyer tomorrow if they're smart enough, right? There's no transition needed. Within the military, we all kind of walk, talk, and act a little bit differently. And, there is a big difference, even from somebody who just spent 4 years in service. There's a big difference in who they have become while being in the military. Their isms, their manners, their characteristics, stuff like that. And so it really is a transition process from the military back into civilian life.
Absolutely. So as far as transitioning from the military, so let's define who that is. Who actually would be eligible for this type of a program?
So these are service members who are fully separating or retiring Um, the guard, yes, you can participate. So if you were to transition from full-time active duty into the guard or reservist, you would be eligible as well because those are considered part-time jobs, and the DoD is really looking to set service members up with full-time careers in order for them to live. The kind of life that they're looking to live. All the successes and the money and the all that comes with it. So if a service member, whether they're separating or retiring, are looking for a new full-time career, SkillBridge is for them.
So, okay, so the different branches of the military, would there be any difference in how they would use this program?
So each branch, the DoD actually allows each branch a certain bit of autonomy to run their SkillBridge program how they see fit. It's funny, the Marine Corps actually had the first iteration of SkillBridge, and then several years later, the Army came up with their program, and the Army dubbed SkillBridge. They call it CSP, Career Skills Program. It's the same thing. And then in 2014, the DoD created an umbrella program to cover all of the branches. And then in 2021, the Coast Guard got approved, which I was really happy to see. And so every branch has their own little bit of autonomy that they're able to, execute. So the Army program, the way they execute the program is a little bit different than the way the Navy executes their program. But the basis is still the same, right? Any service member, any rank, enlisted, officer, junior, senior, CONUS, OCONUS, doesn't matter. All service members are able to request permission to participate in a SkillBridge opportunity.
Interesting. Oh, and by the way, if you're watching or listening right now, we will have all the links that we're talking about with all these programs down the show notes. It's skillbridge.osd.mil, and you don't have to remember that because we will have that in the show notes down below. But it is. I tell you what an amazing program this is. I've been going through the website, and I think this is absolutely phenomenal. And I wish I knew more about this prior to this. So as now, we have this program out there that's helping people transition, get training, etc. So how does someone go about searching for those programs and those jobs out there?
For service members you're referring to.
Yes.
Okay, so for service members, the best thing that I suggest is doing keyword searches weekly. It's really important to do it weekly because the SkillBridge website is updated every Friday, normally Friday afternoons. And so every week, the DoD is updating the website with new organizations that have become SkillBridge approved. So today, you run a search for A&P technician or aviation mechanic or something like that. This week you find 60 SkillBridge approved organizations. Next week, maybe you find 66, right? So every week I suggest service members do that. And whenever you're ready, I'm happy to go into screen sharing mode and kind of show that. Maybe you want to talk a little bit more and then I'll, kind of consolidate. But
Yeah.
the SkillBridge website has a lot of what service members are looking for. I do want to preface by saying there is none, no, zero, zilch, any SkillBridge opportunities listed anywhere on the SkillBridge website. All service members are seeing when they see the SkillBridge locations are the locations where approved companies have said we may be able to offer a SkillBridge opportunity in this location. But if you open up each line item from each company, none of the blocks, none of the text blocks read like a job description. So there are no individual SkillBridge opportunities. LinkedIn Jobs is a great place to find individual SkillBridge opportunities. I ran a search yesterday, and there were more than 2,200 individual SkillBridge opportunities listed on LinkedIn Jobs.
Wow.
Another place is Value for Veterans. Value for Veterans is an organization that I love. They're trying to bridge the gap, right? There is no one central location where all SkillBridge opportunities are housed, and there is no one central location where all service members go and drop their resume for SkillBridge recruiters to consider. And so Value for Veterans is doing a great job in plugging that hole, and hopefully the DoD is able to pick up on that and take that and run with it.
You said you have a screen that you can show us where that they can actually go and do this search. Is that something we can pull up here?
Absolutely. Okay, so Right now, I'm on the authorized SkillBridge organizations page. So this page, along with several others, are updated every Friday. This is the one page that is definitely all-inclusive. And so this search bar right here is based on two columns. One is going to be the organization's name, and the other one is going to be the functional area / job family. So if we just do a search for aviation, you can see that the company's changed. Aviation is in their name. Aviation. Okay, so these have their aviation in their name. Okay, so all of these have aviation in their name. So this is saying out of the more than 4,400 approved organizations, there is 71 companies that have some kind of aviation opportunities, right? And so you come over here, installation, maintenance, repair, sales, administrative support. So these are the companies that service members should be targeting if they're looking for aviation kind of SkillBridge opportunities. And I would also encourage service members be artistic in their search, right? So you could do aviation, you could do flight. Let's see what comes up. So we got flight in their name. A lot of organizations don't realize that they can choose more than what the DoD suggests as keywords. So a lot of these terms that I may be searching up may not come into this column, but they will come up in this column.
Could you try airframe? I'm just curious because that's something I think a lot of people would search for, airframe.
Is that one word or two?
You can do as one word, airframe. There you go, right there. Interesting. Okay.
Yep. And then let me try just as two words. And that brought up a couple more.
Yeah, absolutely. Interesting.
So somewhere here, airframe is
that's in the description. It's not just in the name of the company. This is really cool.
Yep. So imagine a service member going through all 4,453 companies. Do you have something for me? No. Do you have something for me? Maybe. I mean, it'll take them more than a year to get through all of these organizations. So I'm really happy that the DoD has that search function because every week, depending on the week and the interest that the DoD sees from civilian organizations, I mean, I've seen as small as 5 organizations get approved in one week, and all the way up to like 60 or 70 organizations, right? So it's definitely incumbent upon the service member to really run these keyword searches weekly. And I suggest them keeping track of it, Word document, Excel document, something like that. So that way they know which companies they've reached out to, what kind of responses they've gotten. And so they can kind of rack and stack what companies they're still interested in after they learn about them and who they want to apply to.
It's amazing how many opportunities actually are out there. That was pretty amazing what you just showed me. But should I still continue to this is on a computer, right? And I'm a big fan of networking. Is that something that they would still? How would they network in this environment? I'm always talking about networking. How would you do that in this environment?
So, in this environment, and then, once service members become a veteran, it's very rare that a person stays 40 years at the same company. So the more people that know and like you, the more opportunities and doors are going to be available to you. And so networking is the name of the game, right? Before a service member even considers applying for a SkillBridge opportunity, they should absolutely get a hold of that organization's SkillBridge POC, learn about that organization, learn about their SkillBridge program, and build a rapport with that program manager, right? Because more people find jobs these days because of who they know instead of what they know. The air community is a little bit different, right? Certifications are pretty heavily driven, right? If you don't have a certain certification, sometimes it doesn't really matter how much a recruiter likes you. They need that piece of paper backing your name to know that you have a requisite knowledge to perform that job. So what I want to do is go back to screen sharing and show service members how to actually find SkillBridge points of contact. So here I'm on the SkillBridge locations page. This is where service members really start to misuse the SkillBridge website. Once you use the authorized SkillBridge organizations page to kind of find what organizations are approved for the types of opportunities they're interested in, then they want to come here to partner. And let's just take Embry-Riddle, right? They're pretty big. Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. Here you go. Angela Albritton. Here's her email address. Service members should not say the word SkillBridge to recruiters that don't know what SkillBridge is. in my experience, the word SkillBridge is a cool new term that, very honestly, recruiters work very hard, and a lot of times they don't have the time to educate themselves on these cool new terms. And so I would suggest for service members to reach out to those SkillBridge POCs to speak about SkillBridge, right? Because these people that are listed on the SkillBridge website are going to know exactly what they're referring to. Angela is very well aware of what SkillBridge is. We reset it over here, and then we can go up here, keywords, and we'll run the same keyword search, right? Aviation. Okay, circle. You hit this blue plus. Somewhere in here is the word aviation. Okay, so we basically did the same thing as, let me find it here. Here we go, aviation. Okay, so you're going to email Doug. Hey, Doug, I'm transitioning out of the Air Force in 9 months. I see that you're SkillBridge approved, and I would love to learn more about your aviation mechanics SkillBridge opportunities. You know, something like that, a nice short email or LinkedIn DM or, you know, something like that to let them know that you're interested in their SkillBridge program and what you're narrowing your focus down to. And that'll be a great way to, you know, start a connection with that SkillBridge program manager.
Dave, in your experience, do most of these people that are on there as a point of contact, do they usually have LinkedIn accounts?
Yes.
Yeah.
Normally they have LinkedIn accounts. You know, the DoD approves companies of all sizes, and so some of the smaller organizations may not have, you know, LinkedIn accounts, but it's few and far between. And I would say about 70% of approved companies have listed POCs on the SkillBridge location page.
Absolutely. That's great to hear. You know, one of the things that I think is interesting is that there's so many people out there saying, well, yeah, that's cool, but have people actually used this? No. If you don't mind me asking, do you have any experience with this yourself?
I do actually. So I am a SkillBridge success story.
Oh,
I started SkillBridge in 2019, finished in 2020 with General Dynamics Information Technology. They brought me on to be a senior training advisor. Loved every minute of it. Never stopped talking about it. Ended up getting hired on. Spent about a year in my role, and I continued to help GDIT build their SkillBridge program. Continued to help service members learn about the program, and I continued to learn from the program office what SkillBridge is and is not. And then I was able to start helping companies become approved and build their program. After about a year of working with GDIT, they promoted me to lead the organization's SkillBridge program. And across the next 2 years, I ended up 10xing their program, taking them from 8 service members in 2020. And when I left them in early 2023, I did 83 service members in 2022. So I was able to really, you know, expand their program significantly. And you know, I stepped out in 2023, and this is what I do full time is do consulting. Love speaking with service members, love helping them understand their why and how to attack the SkillBridge program, and really giving them the insight that employers, that companies are coming into this with, right? I see a lot of service members say, oh, I can do anything and I'm willing to live anywhere. That's probably the worst thing a service member can do for themselves, right? Because recruiters want to make a long-term, full-time employment relationship with these service members. If they have to figure out or guess what a service member wants to do, the conversation is going to be, you know, short-lived, right? Service member really needs to figure out what it is they want to do, and then go speak to those organizations that have those kind of jobs that the service member is actually interested in.
you know, that's some great advice. You know, we've been talking a lot about the employer side of things. How about we switch to the other side? And so there's another part of this, and this is prior to getting out. So you'd have to get some kind of approval, I'm assuming. And how would you start this process? And is there any way to make it quicker and be more efficient?
So every branch is now aligned with each other. Again, each branch had a certain or has a certain bit of autonomy to run their program the way they see fit, but now all branches are aligned in this process that the service member must receive an approval or excuse me, a written SkillBridge offer from an approved SkillBridge vendor before they're able to ask permission from their commanding officer to participate. So, you know, when you think about what comes first, the, you know, the egg or the chicken or the cart or the horse, or, in this situation, the company has to go first. A written training plan or acceptance letter for the Navy, is required from the company, given to the service member, and then each branch has their own approval process. But either way, that paperwork will need to be submitted by the service member to their, for the Air Force, it's the Education Office. The Army, it's the SFL TAP office. Marine Corps, it's a TRS office. The Navy, it's just their chain of command. Unfortunately, they don't have to go through their Fleet and Family Services. Coast Guard also submits it through their chain of command. But they have to submit something, right? Something to show the commanding officer, I have not a promise, but I have an opportunity, right, in hand from this approved organization. Pretty pleased with sugar on top. May I, participate in this SkillBridge opportunity? And so then it goes through the process, right? The Army and the Air Force have very streamlined processes. Normally, the process takes about 1 to 2 weeks for the service member to gain approval or denial from their commanding officer. The Navy and the Marine Corps a little bit longer. Coast Guard, right about, the Navy and the Marine Corps a little bit more than 2 weeks. But yeah, all service members are getting approval from their commanding officer because each commanding officer is responsible for a certain level of readiness within their command. So obviously deployable units are needed to, they need to, stay a little bit sharper, right? They need to be ready in order to deploy and do the nation's work. And some of those, in the Navy, we call them shore duty billets, right? Non-deployable units. Maybe they have a little bit more flexibility in how many service members they're allowed to, let go. But ultimately, when a service member requests to do SkillBridge, you're ultimately asking your commanding officer, please have 7 people do the job of 10 people. That's ultimately what you're asking, right? And so that's where the approval or denial process comes in for the CO, is that, can my unit still function at a high level with one less person? And so, the commanding officer has the overall say. There is no what's the word when you appeal it, right? There is no appeal process if a service member gets denied. But I would have the service member speak to their chain of command early, right? Let them know of their intentions of wanting to participate in SkillBridge and kind of feeling out their chain of command. What is it going to take to allow them to participate in SkillBridge? So that way the service member has time to put in place those things that the commanding officer is saying, well, in order for you to go, I need this, this, and this from you. Something that I see from service members a lot is, okay, today's my 180-day mark. What do you have for me? And I'm like, oh my God, you completely missed the boat. Like, the chance of you getting a SkillBridge opportunity is few and far between. Communicate with your chain of command early on. Find out what it's going to take to make the commanding officer feel confident with letting you go, and then exercise all of those line items that the CO is giving you as a way forward.
So to better define early on, a year, 2 years, months, how would you define that?
So I would definitely say that service members need to start networking at least 2 years out from their separation or retirement with civilian organizations, with people that do the kind of work that they are interested in doing, with the kind of organizations that they're looking to join. As far as the chain of command goes, at least 12 months in advance, if not longer. And the reason why I say longer is because those organizations, and we do have defense agencies, or excuse me, government agencies, CISA, DHS, NSA, right? They all have SkillBridge programs, but most of them require a top secret clearance or higher. When a service member wants to apply, they should be applying to those organizations that require a TS clearance earlier on, because there is no reciprocity with their clearance. Those 3-letter intel agencies do not have the ability to just merge over the service member's DoD clearance. It doesn't convert. And so a full background check needs to happen, to which it's not an overnight process, right? It takes between 2 and 4 months. So in order for the service member to not waste their SkillBridge time, they need to apply earlier. And so in order to apply earlier, really they should be, asking their commanding officer, their chain of command, I'd love to participate in SkillBridge. This is what I'm thinking. What do you think? What's my ability? What do you think my ability is to participate? Not every service member gets approved for the full 6 months. So I've facilitated SkillBridge opportunities for as little as 6 weeks. So it just kind of depends on how long can the unit allow that service member to go for, and how long does the company actually need that service member in the seat to train for that opportunity to make that opportunity a high likelihood for follow-on employment.
Yes, Dave, I love the fact that you talked about the TS clearance, and that is one of the biggest questions I get is that, oh, it won't be a problem. I'll be able to do this afterwards. I have my TS clearance. And no, in the civilian world, it's different. It's a whole nother process that you have to go through again. So I'm hats off to you for doing that, because I've said that a million times, and I'm glad someone here that has some experience with it has said that. So really great information. But so let's pretend I'm somebody that, like, I want to get involved in the SkillBridge program, but I'm not approved by DoD, the SkillBridge program. Is there any way that someone could get involved with the SkillBridge program, say that I have here at Aviation Careers Podcast, say?
Absolutely. So I'm going to go back to screen sharing mode, and I will walk you through what it takes from a company side to start the application. So right now, you would select, hover over here and select industry partners, and you're going to come down here, how to participate, and contact us. And then from the drop-down menu, apply to be a SkillBridge partner. And so this brings up, make sure that this box is checked. This brings up the first interest form, or the interest form, that every company needs to fill out in order to begin the SkillBridge application process. It's very short, takes maybe 5 minutes. I do suggest employers select all of the branches. They can select ones that they are actually interested in, but really, I suggest companies think long term. If you only selected Coast Guard, in this moment, and in a year from now your SkillBridge program goes well, do you think that you'll want to make your SkillBridge program available to all service members? And if the answer is yes, I would suggest organizations select all of the companies up front. So that way, when they get approved, they don't have to go back to the DoD and say, now I would like to, offer it to more service members, right? Get approved for the largest program possible, and then have your program, however you see fit. Once an organization fills out this form, submits it, they will receive 2 emails instantaneously. The first email is going to be, thank you for your submission, right? An acknowledgement of submission. The second email is going to have a link to the online questionnaire, and that questionnaire represents the bulk of the application. And so that's where an organization of any size would start their SkillBridge process as far as becoming approved.
Interesting. Matt, you had a question?
Yeah, Dave, if someone's on active duty or reserve and they go in the SkillBridge program, do they still receive their pay and benefits while they're in the program?
That's a great question. Yes. So SkillBridge is only for service members who are still a service member. So once a service member transitions and becomes a veteran, they're no longer eligible to participate in SkillBridge. The DoD continues to cover all pays, benefits, and allowances for service members who participate in SkillBridge, which is why the DoD does not allow any approved organizations to pay service members during their SkillBridge time. And the only reason why this is allowed to exist in the eyes of the Department of Labor is because the DoD is still paying a livable wage to the service member. So the service member doesn't lose any money, right? Except for those, special operations kind of falls into this category, right? Where it's like jump pay, dive pay, hazardous duty pay, right? Any of those special pays like that, where a service member is away from their unit for more than 90 days, they will forfeit those pays. But anything else, BAH, BAS, base pay, all of that stuff, service members continue to retain those pays and benefits. Now, there is no financial gain or loss with SkillBridge. So this is very important for service members to understand. If a service member is stationed in the middle of America, let's say Fort Sill, Oklahoma, where the cost of living is fairly low, and they take a SkillBridge opportunity in New York City, where the cost of living is fairly high, they're going to be homeless because they're going to continue to receive Fort Sill, Oklahoma BAH. They're not going to get New York City BAH. But the opposite is also true. If a service member who's on recruiting duty in New York City goes and takes a SkillBridge opportunity in Fort Sill, Oklahoma, they're going to go live like a king or queen because they're going to continue to receive New York City BAH. So it's very much incumbent upon the service member to understand that. Go run your numbers on the BAH calculator that's published every year. Military.com, Defense Travel has their own BAH calculator. Run the BAH calculator for the zip codes of where you live, where you're getting BAH for, and where you plan to live during SkillBridge, and understand what the difference in money is going to be. And I encourage employers to do the same thing.
What about if let's say you're a Marine in the barracks in San Diego and you get a SkillBridge program in, say, Tampa. Is there an opportunity to live in the barracks in Tampa?
There is an opportunity, but there's not a guarantee. So if a service member is eligible to receive BAH, they should definitely file for BAH and receive that to be able to, live out in town. There is a memo that the DoD released, I believe, in 2021, that basically says barracks can be used during SkillBridge unpaid for, right? The service member doesn't have to pay for room, electricity, or water during their time of SkillBridge, but once they separate from the military, they're no longer eligible to utilize the barracks rooms. However, a service member needs to book it like a hotel in advance. One of the worst things a service member can do is, go to a new base and go to the barracks and say, okay, I'm here, I need a room. I'll be honest, a lot of barracks don't realize that they have the ability to give out these rooms free of charge under the SkillBridge program. And furthermore, if they don't have any room, they're certainly not going to kick out a resident in order to fit that service member starting SkillBridge. So service members should definitely contact that barracks location where they plan on moving to for SkillBridge and find out if they're going to honor giving them a room for SkillBridge and just make sure that they have that resource available for them.
There's one more good reason to start the search well before your 6 months. Well before.
Absolutely. And that memo that service members are looking for is on my my LinkedIn profile. So service members go to my LinkedIn profile, they'll see it there, the exact memo that they're looking for.
And we'll have that link to your profile in the show notes also. Matt, you brought up a good point here, and something that can be a little confusing to, especially folks like myself trying to help people with like their leave and their term. We talk about term leave, etc. What do these coexist, or are they concurrent? I mean, is there SkillBridge? You can have terminal leave. I guess there's also another type of leave. How could you maybe put some color to that for me?
Sure. So SkillBridge and terminal leave are supposed to overlap. They're supposed to overlap. So any leave, and I see this a lot from service members, and it's kind of odd because we're creatures of instruction, right? We're creatures of everything we do is based on instruction. And so I see a lot of service members saying, oh, my command wants me to burn my terminal leave before I start SkillBridge. That's not terminal leave. That's regular leave, right? So terminal leave is a leave that a service member gets just before they're finished separating or retiring from service. That also makes that service member eligible to be hired by a civilian organization. And so terminal leave allows the service member to go get hired and kind of fill their time with something else that would normally conflict with their military duties. Regular leave does not provide them that. And so if a service member goes on regular leave and goes and gets a job with a civilian organization, on day 2 of that job, of that new job, if the commanding officer says, hey, something happened, I need you to come back, the service member is required to cut their regular leave short and go return back to their unit. Terminal leave, a service member is essentially, they're not untouchable, but they should not be touched unless, World War III or something, really dramatic happens. So terminal leave happens on the back end, but terminal leave can overlap and should overlap with SkillBridge. So an example, service member gets approved for a full 6-month SkillBridge opportunity. Let's say July 1st to December 31st. Okay. They have 60 days of terminal leave. So their SkillBridge is July 1st to December 31st. With 60 days of terminal leave, they're going to take November 1st to December 31st. So they're going to overlap. And that provides the most amount of flexibility for both the service member and the organization, right, the SkillBridge organization, during this time. So when November 1st hits, if the service member is unhappy with their SkillBridge time, they can tell the employer, thank you so much. I really appreciate this opportunity. This is not what I see myself doing, or I don't, like the company culture or whatever the case may be. They can end their SkillBridge opportunity early. They don't need permission from anybody, not their commanding officer, transition counselor, anybody, right? They can do that, and they can sit at home and watch soap operas if they want, right? During their terminal leave, right? Terminal leave is for them to do whatever they want to do with their time. But the opposite is also true. If an employer is very impressed with the service member, they can end the service member's SkillBridge time early and hire them because the service member is on terminal leave. If the service member doesn't take terminal leave, then legally the organization is not legally eligible to hire them. And so, that's also, service members want to offer as much of a buffer as possible for an employer, right? Because they're trying to match an open job with the end of the SkillBridge. And sometimes if it's only 1 day buffer, that can be tough. But if you give an employer 2 months, any time during these 2 months, an employer may have the opportunity and ready to hire you during those 2 months. So it's a lot easier for an employer to work with the service member when they have terminal leave to work with.
As an employer, one of the questions you'd have, I'm sure people have, is, what kind of skills should I put out there? I mean, I may think that what I have to offer wouldn't fit with somebody coming out of the military. I mean, I'm probably wrong.
Yeah, definitely. So any full-time, long-term employment opportunity that offers a livable wage, and obviously that's going to be based on location, is eligible to start as a SkillBridge opportunity. It's just up to the host organization to decide what they want to make available, right? The basis of the SkillBridge program is to upskill or retrain service members. So upskilling means you take a junior system administrator and you use their SkillBridge time to turn them into a senior system administrator. Or retraining, you take somebody like a Navy cook and you teach them how to be a cyber analyst, right? And so what training looks like is 100% up to the host organization. Now, service members are not supposed to be qualified to be hired into the jobs that they're being offered to train in. The DoD does not want to pay up to 6 months of pays, benefits, and allowances for a service member to go train in an opportunity they're already qualified to be hired into. So that's a lot different for employers to think about, right? When employers look at a resume, they're trying to check off how many boxes does this service member, have according to the job description. Well, they're not supposed to check all the boxes. And so an organization can bring on somebody who's like 70%, 60% qualified for a job and use their SkillBridge time to get them the last 30% there. Or again, they can take somebody that has absolutely no background or experience in that job and they can turn them into, a cyber analyst or a product manager, like whatever the case may be. So it just depends on what the appetite for training is on the employer side. To determine what type of service members they want to bring into their program and what opportunities they want to offer.
Yeah, that was a great example, and that makes a lot of sense. I mean, you're trying to upskill or train them in a different skill, and that was terrific. And it's exciting to someone like myself and other employers out there is that you have these people that are out there that have training and are great employees, and you can retrain or upskill them. And I highly recommend people look at this, the SkillBridge program. Getting back to the person that's actually coming back out of the military or transitioning, how would the VA claims process work with this SkillBridge program?
That's a great question. So the VA will not talk to a service member or their VSO, right? If they have somebody who's representing them, the VA will not talk to that service member until their 180-day mark. Coincidentally, that is the first day that the service member is able to begin a SkillBridge opportunity. So during the application process, companies have to understand, and it says it right there on the SkillBridge application, what is the schedule that service members are going to train. And so the DoD requires service members to train Monday through Friday during normal daytime hours up to not exceeding 40 hours in a week, right? So no night shift, off shift, weekends, or holidays. During the SkillBridge time, the service member is going to have medical appointments with the VA or any of the contracted medical facilities that the VA contracts with for VA appointments. And so employers, SkillBridge hosts, need to allow that service member to go do those appointments. That's probably one of the fastest ways for an organization to be removed from the SkillBridge program is if a service member reports, my SkillBridge host would not let me go do my VA appointments, right? Host companies have to support that. So when an organization is looking at, do I want to bring on this service member? If an opportunity is going to take 3 months to get that service member through the opportunity, and the service member is only able to offer that organization 3 months, that's a failure. I would not offer that SkillBridge opportunity because inevitably the service member is going to miss SkillBridge time. They're going to miss training time. When I was with GDIT doing SkillBridge, over 6 months, I was fortunate enough to get a 6-month opportunity. I had a lot of medical appointments, but when you take them and you put them all back to back, I maybe missed a total of 2 weeks. So if an employer writes up a training plan that says, we'll train you for 3 months, but the service member is only able to offer 3 months, that means the service member is not actually going to train for 3 months because inevitably they're going to miss time for their VA appointments along with their administration appointments, right? Like signing your DD 214 and the insurance and all that stuff. And, maybe they want to have a, get out of the military party, stuff like that. But yeah, if a service member can give you 4 months, but it's really only going to take you as an employer 3 months to get them through your training program, that's going to be successful. So organizations have to allow service members to go do their VA appointments, and they are going to, coincide with the service member's SkillBridge time.
Yeah. And I think a lot of the training programs that are involved have a lot of slack in them anyway. So that might work out perfectly. But yeah, this is, Dave, this has been awesome. I mean, what an incredible program. And, we're talking about the SkillBridge program from the DoD. I know we've talked a lot here. Just to summarize once again, what is this one more time? And how about taking advantage of these programs? What's the best way to start?
Best way to start is first figure out from service members what it is you want to do and where you want to live. I said it before, and you tell a recruiter, I'll do anything, anywhere, and that's the fastest way to get a conversation shut down. Okay, they want to make a long-term investment in you. If they recruit you to do a SkillBridge opportunity for a certain job profile, they want to see you there for several years. So first figuring out, and I really implore service members to chase their happiness. There are a lot of service members who just want to get out and retain their clearance, right? They're going to go do a job that keeps their clearance but doesn't really make them happy. Or a lot of times service members want to chase the dollar, right? What's going to make them the most amount of money? I understand money makes the world go around, but I don't want a service member, veteran. I don't want a veteran to wake up and be like, oh my God, I got to go to this job today, right? That's just not what I want for them. I want them to wake up and you chose to separate. You chose to retire, right? Go do something with your life that you're happy with, that you're proud of, and not something that you're begrudgingly, going to. So please chase your happiness. Run the keyword searches on the SkillBridge site weekly, right? Every week, new organizations are being added. Reach out to those program managers. Find out more about that organization and their SkillBridge program, right? It's not wrong for a service member to ask very pointed questions to that POC of how many service members did you bring on in 2023 and how many of them did you offer full-time jobs to? Okay. So organizations are supposed to stay above the 85% threshold, right? The verbiage in the DoD says high likelihood of follow-on employment. Well, that high likelihood equates to 85% or more. And so a service member is able to go with an organization that is below 85%, but they should understand that on the front end, right? If an organization doesn't have a very good reputation of hiring service members out of SkillBridge, the worst thing that could happen is the last day of SkillBridge comes and then the company shakes their hand and says, okay, thank you for your time, have a good day. They should know in advance, there's not really a likelihood that I'm going to be hired. And so then service members should continue to network during their SkillBridge time. So that way they do have the ability to land an opportunity after their SkillBridge with a different organization.
Dave, this has been some great advice. Boy, I tell you, I could talk to you for hours about this, but Dave Schantz really is an ambassador for the DoD SkillBridge program. I think this is terrific what you're doing, and hats off to you for this. And thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciate that. If you're watching or listening right now, we're going to have all the links to everything we talked about in the show notes below. And I really highly recommend you go back and look at this video if you're listening in your earbuds right now and you're driving to work, because there's some really good information that's out there. We'll have some screenshots for you too on the website. But Dave, I really appreciate your coming here. Thanks so much for your service, and thanks so much for what you do for all the service members.
Thank you, Carl. Thank you for having this platform and focusing this on for transitioning service members and veterans. And happy to provide some value and looking forward to continuing the conversation later on.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll definitely, if you have questions, of course, feedback at aviationcareerspodcast.com, or just go to our contact page and we will forward them on to Dave, and I'm sure he'll get back to you. But if one thing I'd like you to do for me, if you're somebody who's kind of like thinking about this and says, oh, this sounds like a lot of work, it just take one step every day and move forward in whatever it is you're doing in your career. Maybe it's you're going out to the website to do a search, a general search. Maybe it's just getting your resume together. Maybe it's reaching out to Dave possibly on LinkedIn. But the most important thing you can do for me today is to take one step today to move forward in your career. And I am sure that you will reach your goal. Well, safe flying out there. We'll talk to you next episode.